How do you build a mind? Seriously. Or an ecosystem, or an entire economy? How does our world get from a bunch of simple, separate parts to a complex, functioning whole? It's one of the biggest questions out there, right? And today, we're going to tackle it head-on by trying to compose a mind, piece by piece. The amazing AI pioneer Marvin Minsky gave us the perfect place to start. He came up with this idea of a suitcase word. Think about words like thinking, or consciousness, or even wanting. They feel like single things, but they're not. They're suitcases, totally jam-packed with dozens of smaller, interacting ideas. And the biggest, most overstuffed suitcase of them all, the mind itself.
So, that's our mission today. We are going to pop open that suitcase together. We're going to ask, what are the little bits and pieces that make up a mind? And, way more importantly, how in the world do they fit together to create, well, to create you?
Minsky's core idea, and this is really the foundation for our whole journey, is that a mind isn't one single, monolithic thing. It's not a king on a throne. It's a society. It's this bustling, sometimes totally chaotic collection of smaller systems, all working together, and sometimes competing with each other. And when you actually start unpacking, wow, look at the sheer variety of stuff Minsky says is in there. You've got your basic, built-in instincts, right? The gut reactions. But then you've got these higher-level processes like deliberative thinking, weighing your options, all the way up to self-reflection, where we're literally thinking about our own thinking. We even have multiple versions of ourselves that we switch between depending on the situation. So the mind isn't just one thing, it's a whole hierarchy of processes built one on top of the other.
Okay, so we've got the parts list, we've unpacked the suitcase, but here's where it gets really tricky and where we have to go beyond just making a list. You can't just dump all these systems in a pile and call it a mind. The magic, and frankly the whole mystery, is in how they interact.
And this wasn't just a problem for people studying the mind. This was a huge issue across all of science. As James Gleick writes in his incredible book Chaos, that old-school approach, break things down, understand the parts, and then just add them up, it was completely failing when it came to anything complex. Something new was needed.
This slide just nails the problem perfectly. On the left, you've got the old, simple way of thinking, the behavior of System 1 plus the behavior of System 2. Easy, right? Well, that giant not equal to sign in the middle is screaming, no! The truth is on the right. When you actually compose them, when System 1 and System 2 interact, you get something totally new and different. This is the fundamental composition problem.
So, we need a name for this new stuff that just seems to appear out of nowhere when things combine. The term is generative effects. And this is the whole game, right here. It's when systems get together and create something that just did not exist in the parts by themselves. It's the difference between a pile of Legos and a fully built Millennium Falcon.
Let's make this super concrete. Imagine you have two different subway systems in a city. Neither one on its own can get you from your apartment at point A to your friend's place at point E. But what happens if you build one little transfer station that connects them? Suddenly, a new path emerges that wasn't there before. That new path is a generative effect. It wasn't in either system, it was created by their combination.
Okay, quick heads up. We're about to shift gears a little. We're going to open up the mathematical toolbox. But hey, don't run for the hills. I promise, this isn't going to be a dry lecture. This is the good stuff. This is where we find the elegant, universal language that actually describes how everything, and I mean everything, is built. And that amazing language is called category theory. Now, it's a branch of math, but it was invented specifically to talk about systems and structures and how they relate. Think of it as our blueprint for building worlds. The most basic building block is, you guessed it, a category. And let's just forget the heavy math for a second and think of it as a simple map or a blueprint. On this blueprint, you have objects, those are the nouns, the things, like people or neurons or companies, and then you have arrows, those are the verbs, the relationships, sends a message to, transforms into, is a part of. The beauty of a category is that it ignores all the messy details and just shows you the pure, essential structure of how things are connected. So, if a category is a blueprint for one system, how do you compare it to another? Well, that's where a functor comes in. Think of a functor as a perfect translator. It can take the blueprint of your company's sales team and map it onto the blueprint of the engineering team. And it does it in a way that preserves the structure. So if Alice manages Bob in sales, the functor finds the equivalent, Charlie manages Dana in engineering.
It's a mathematical bridge that lets us see the same pattern in completely different worlds.
And now, we get to the engine room, the adjunction. This is where the magic of creation really happens. Imagine you have two of those functor translators, but they're a special, perfectly matched pair. One goes from system A to system B, and the other goes right back from B to A, in perfect harmony. This special relationship? Well, it's the formal mathematical engine of generation. It's the most efficient way to build something complex out of something simple. It's the blueprint for growth itself.
So let's take these tools out of the toolbox and see them in action. Because these ideas aren't just for a blackboard. They describe the real, tangible way things grow and get organized all around us, and even inside of us. Look at this universal pattern. Let's use a real example. You start with an initial object, let's say an egg. Simple. Step 2, the generator kicks in. And what is that generator? It's an adjunction in action. It's that mathematical engine that starts to unfold all the potential packed inside that egg. The result? A new, fantastically complex system, a human. But it doesn't stop there. The next generator, the next adjunction, is the process that allows that human to create the next generation. It's the cycle of life, described perfectly by this math.
And what is just so mind-blowing is how universal this pattern is. It works across completely different scales. In biology, you use adjunctions to compose an organism from cells. In society, you can use functors to model how an enterprise is built from teams. And in the mind, you can model how a single thought is composed from different concepts. It's the same fundamental logic of generation everywhere you look.
So what does this all mean? Where does this leave us? Well, it gives us this incredibly profound insight into our place in the universe. We've seen how a mind is composed, and we've found a language to describe it. Now let's zoom all the way out and see why this matters on a cosmic scale.
James Gleick just says it perfectly. The universe doesn't care if the parts are neurons, or people, or planets. The deep laws of how simple things combine to create complex things, those laws are universal. They're the rules of the game.
And here it is, the ultimate takeaway. We live in a universe that, according to the laws of physics, is always tending towards disorder, towards falling apart. That's entropy. So the biggest question of all is how can anything complex, like you or me, even exist? The answer is composition. These generative patterns we've been modeling are nature's way of fighting back against the chaos. They are the beautiful, intricate fractals of order that blossom in a universe of entropy.
So we started with a suitcase full of ideas about the mind, and we ended up with the universal blueprint for how order itself is possible. Everything from minds to markets is composed of interacting systems. The trick is understanding how they compose. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. What are the universal patterns that compose your world? What are the systems in your life? And what amazing new things are being generated from how they connect?